Hello, I'm Grant, and welcome back to Phrasal Verb News, where we use real news stories to teach you phrasal verbs and idioms in context. First, I'll explain the story in English, then break down today's expressions with examples. Y, como siempre, voy a dar la traducción al español y un ejemplo para que quede más claro. Let's get started. Today's story is about the US government making a rare move into the private sector. President Trump announced that the government has acquired a 10% stake in Intel, one of America's most famous chip makers. The stake comes from converting $11.1 billion in funds that had already been pledged to Intel through government programs like the CHIPS Act. The deal gives the government 433 million shares of Intel stock at a discount, meaning on paper, the taxpayers are already sitting on a $2 billion gain. It's a big shift. Intel has struggled in recent years, losing billions of dollars and laying off or firing more than 20,000 workers as it tries to bounce back from previous mistakes. Meanwhile, NVIDIA has taken over as the chip industry leader with a market value of over $4 trillion. Trump has gone back and forth with Intel's new CEO, Lip-Bu Tan. Earlier this month, he even demanded Tan resign over national security concerns, but then he backed off after Tan pledged loyalty to the US and met Trump at the White House. The two now appear aligned, with Trump praising Tan as highly respected. Supporters say the deal is a smart way for the U.S. to cash in on its investment while also ensuring more chip production happens domestically. Critics, however, warn that the government is getting into dangerous territory by mixing politics and business. Some investors fear Trump might meddle or interfere with Intel's operations, creating uncertainty for the tech sector. Let's move on to the vocab. And remember, I'll give you an example and a question, so try to answer the question in your head or out loud so you can easily remember the vocab later. First, we have bounce back. This means to recover after a setback. For example, Intel is trying to bounce back after years of losses. The company bounced back after the recession. En español es recuperarse. Por ejemplo, la empresa se recuperó después de la crisis. And a question. Can you think of a time when you or your company had to bounce back from a failure? Next, we have back off, to retreat or stop pressuring someone. For example, Trump backed off his demand for Intel's CEO to resign. The manager backed off once the team explained their plan. En español es como echarse para atrás. Por ejemplo, se echó atrás después de escuchar los argumentos. And a question. Have you ever had to back off in a negotiation or a discussion at work? Why? Next, we have cash in on. This is to benefit from something financially. For example, the government hopes to cash in on its discounted Intel shares. They cashed in on the holiday season with record sales. En español es como sacar provecho de o beneficiarse de. Por ejemplo, la empresa se benefició de la nueva tendencia de consumo. And a question. Do you think it's always ethical for companies to cash in on trends? Why or why not? And lastly, we have get into. In business, this could be to enter into a new industry or area. But in day-to-day life, it could be like starting a new hobby. For example, critics say the government is getting into dangerous territory by owning Intel stock. The company got into renewable energy last year. En español es como meterse en o involucrarse en. Por ejemplo, el gobierno se está metiendo en territorio peligroso al comprar acciones. And a question. What new area or industry would you like to get into if you had the chance? So to recap, the US government has bought into Intel, hoping the company can bounce back. Trump demanded Intel CEO resign, but later backed off, and now Washington hopes to cash in on its investment. But critics say the government is getting into risky territory. especially as Intel lays off workers and struggles to compete with NVIDIA. So that's all for today's episode of Phrasal Verb News. Gracias por escuchar. I'm Grant, and don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or YouTube so you don't miss tomorrow's episode. Thanks again.